We'll go to question number 2 now. This is from Steve Perry, who says, why does Moses refer to himself as Yahweh in Deuteronomy 29:6? Let's go to that passage, Deuteronomy 29, verse 6. And I'm taking 20 questions today, as I do pretty much every Friday, just almost every Friday. Sometimes I'm not able to, but taking your questions from the live chat, trying to give you guys a biblical answer as much as I'm able to, at least point you to the scripture. So Deuteronomy 29:6 says, you've not eaten bread, and you have not drunk wine or strong drink, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. Okay, so you're interpreting this one, Steve, as Moses is the one saying, I am the Lord, and that word L-O-R-D, how it's capitalized on your screen there, the O, the R, and the D are like in small capitals. That's like the translator's way of hinting to us all that that's the Hebrew name of God in the Old Testament, Yahweh. There's debate on how that should be pronounced, but we're the Yod, He, Vav, He, these 4 Hebrew consonants, and then the vowels and pronunciation are a bit of a debate. But let's back up and just see kind of like a greater context here. We'll start in verse 1 of Deuteronomy 29, and we'll ask, is Moses calling himself Yahweh here? These are the words of the covenant that the Lord commanded Moses to make with the people of Israel. Okay, so there's a covenant, and they're words that God commanded Moses to make. So these words are not coming initially from Moses, they're ultimately coming from God. In the land of Moab, besides the covenant that he had made with them at Horeb. And Moses summoned all Israel to him and said to them, you have seen that the Lord did before your eyes, all that the Lord did before your eyes in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh and all his servants and to all his land. So in verse 2, Moses is speaking of God in the second person. So it's Moses' voice, or he's the perspective that is speaking, and he talks about God in the second person. The Lord did these things before your eyes. The great trials that your eyes saw, the signs and those great wonders, but to this day the Lord has not given you a heart to understand, or eyes to see, or ears to hear. I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes have not worn out on you, and your sandals have not worn off your feet. You've not eaten bread, and you have not drunk wine or strong drink, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. And when you came to this place, now he's obviously starting in verse 5. It's as though he's speaking as if he is God, or he's relaying words from God. Let's keep reading though. And when you came to this place, Sihon, the king of Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us to battle, but we defeated them. So we then have another, now there's a we here at the end. Okay, so I did this, and then there's the we did this. So I think that I guess to give this better context, I just have to give you my personal experience, having read much of the prophets of the Bible and much of the way that God speaks through the prophets. And this sort of thing happens a lot, where a prophet will speak, and Moses was also a prophet, right? And he'll speak, and it's obviously he's getting this from the Lord. This is not just himself. And he'll speak from his perspective. You saw what the Lord did, and then without a beat, switches over to God's perspective. I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. And you might say, well, Mike, why would you say he's just seamlessly switching to God's perspective? Well, for one reason, we see this consistently in the Old Testament. It happens all the time with prophecy. There's this seamless switching to God's perspective, back to the prophet speaking, back to God speaking. And you just have to be kind of like a thoughtful reader to notice these things. But there's also the very nature of what's happening. I have led you for 40 years in the wilderness. In the book of Deuteronomy, in Exodus, it is God is the one that leads Israel. He's very active in it. And so if you're reading the full context of the passage, you know, the pillar of fire, the cloud that by day, that it was God who led them. And, you know, when he tells him he's going to lead them out of Egypt, it's always God who's doing the leading. So this, I have led you for 40 years in the wilderness, is a clue that the person who is I is changed. It's not just Moses, it's God speaking here. On top of that, we have Moses was a prophet, and they often speak directly the words of God like that. So that would be my answer to that. And I just think whenever we have a question like this, you just go and you look at the context, read the verse, read the passage. It's not magic, it's just patience to read scripture in context, and it will answer so many of our questions for us.